Welcome to Behind the Counter, the podcast presented by Kitestring. I'm your host, Vicente Yañez. In this podcast, we take you behind the scenes of retail technology to know about insights, trends, and everything going on from the people who live and breathe it every day. Think about what a store manager was doing in 1995. They had to do physical counts. Probably the end of their reporting had to be manually filled in. If they had printing, probably what's happening at the back of the store in one of those large A4 printers. And then loyalty came around and changed the way stores interact with customers. And then e-commerce, which was a huge bubble at the time, changed the way we think of a store. No longer brick and mortar was our definition of a store. Then mobile came around and it changed the way we purchase entirely. Now we can buy stuff without leaving our house. And each one of these waves brought in retailers who won at that game and brought retailers who didn't make it, didn't have a good strategy, did not adapt. I think we are right in one of those waves right now. There is a lot of stuff going on. We have AI, we have unified commerce, we have different ways of doing payments today, computer vision happening in the aisles, in the point of sale, everywhere in the store. And those are not technologies that are just arriving. They are already here. I think the retailers that are asking the right questions, they are not asking themselves, should I? They are asking themselves, do I have the right people and the right architecture in place to bring all of those things in, all of those business value propositions in? And that's the kind of conversation I want to have today. How do we go from one to the other? Joining us today in this episode, we have the enormous pleasure of having someone who has been at the very center of retail innovation for years in many places. You've seen his work even if you've never met the face. Please help me welcome Tim Webb, our principal architect, practice lead, payments guru, and all-around cool person from Kitestring. How are you, Tim?
Oh, great. Thank you, Vicente. You're way too flattering.
No. Accolades were there too. So let me start. You have lived through several of these, oh my God, retail is about to change moments through your career. But which ones do you think were actually truly transformative versus those that were just like, there was a little bit hype for the time and no one really cared after a few years?
So I think cloud presence and point of sale definitely made integrations move faster and transformed the back end, but truly transformative, I think it really made innovation and deployment faster. I think if you look at truly transformative, I think that's when we connected the data between online to in-store and true e-commerce, unified commerce hit. I think combining payment, identity, loyalty, and everything together, I think that's really when it hit. I think to change the platform where you can order online and pick up in the store, order online and then return to the store, and kind of unify the platforms and made the cross-commerce work really well. I think that was transformative. I think there are things like cashierless store that were a nice thought, and I think that self-checkout did solve a problem with customers who really wanted a seamless experience, didn't want to wait in line and shot through the store. I think that solved a niche problem. I don't think it was truly transformative. I think the unified commerce and connecting online payments and in-store was our biggest transformative step in the last half decade.
When we were talking earlier, you were mentioning some stages also in the life of payments. Like whenever we went from standard credit card, like that thing that you had, the knuckle buster.
Oh, yeah.
And then now we have magnetic stripes, and that was also a thing. And then we moved to chip, and now we're in this tap that enable a lot of new technologies, right? We jumped from tap to mobile wallet. Like, how was that whenever you started hearing the rumor, you started seeing the technology? But I think you were part of that decision making as well.
Yeah, I remember the knuckle busters and the paper, and you had to tear the carbon.
Yeah.
Customers would ask you, hey, I want to make sure you tear that carbon and don't throw it in the trash. I think EMV was the first step, and EMV really wasn't transformative, didn't really reduce customer friction or anything. It really was a shift of liability and reduction of fraud. It added strength to payments because fraud was picking up a lot of momentum. then you move from EMV to tap. And I think that was truly reducing friction. And it was a bit transformative. The customers notice it.
Yes.
When friction's reduced, they notice it. And I think that was around COVID, it really picked up steam as well, because you don't have to
touch the physical device that everyone is.
You just kind of tap in it. And so that became popular during COVID. So I think that was, it reduced friction. It wasn't necessarily transformative. And then mobile payments. Mobile payments in itself was not transformative, but what the addition of mobile payments did is it added a ingredient in the recipe of transformation. It connected your payment on your phone and your identity to your online experience and then back to the in-store. And I think that's where customers and retailers truly move from a transaction to more of a relationship. And identity comes into play because you have your phone. You can now connect receipts to the customer, their payment history, their purchase history, and that kind of connects it all together. That's kind of the linchpin that began connecting everything together.
And something you mentioned earlier, throughout the description of all of these different technologies, the changes on friction and the changes on customer habit, right? That maybe chip wasn't necessarily that different than what they were doing with swiping, but tap was.
Yeah, definitely.
And made me think that all of these new technologies, or every new technology that hits the floor on a store or pretty much anywhere, has to do more with customer habits, with what customers are already accustomed to do, what they need to do, right? COVID was a good example. Everything had to be contactless. We need to minimize that. So then technology followed that. The self-checkout was something that customers were already accustomed to see, which is scanning the items, right? And the experience of the self-checkout was following out of that experience. Now, mobile is something as well. And mobile, if you think about it from a 50-feet view, historically speaking, it's kind of weird. Like, you go from having your credit card that you know is a standing instrument with your financial institution and such, which the card is also weird in itself, but money is weird in itself, to say, no, I have this thing in my device that is in my pocket, and now I can pay with it. It can identify me. It allows me to do these purchases anywhere that I go. And from your perspective of innovation, how do you think that happened, that jump between, I have a card, but now I'm not going to have a card. I want that payment to exist somewhere else.
I'll jump back to, I know you're going to ask me about some of the patents I've done, so I'm going to jump to
yeah.
A lot of the patents and the solutions I came up with came from pure frustration.
Okay.
Right? So some of the patents I worked on and some of the things I designed when smartphones were just starting to emerge, I forgot my wallet one day and they had to suspend the transaction and I had to go out to my car and I had to bring it back in. And I realized that I had my flip phone in my pocket, but I forgot my wallet. And I started thinking, people are going to pay with those one day. They're totally going to pay. And then another frustration I had was I was sick one time. I had a fever. I watched the doctor type up my prescription on his laptop, print out the prescription in the back. I took it to the pharmacy, gave them my paper prescription, waited on a bench with a bunch of other people coughing for about 20 minutes. And then they got it complete. I paid for it and I left. So some of the patents were like ready texting to text you and pay when your prescription's complete. Another one is I bought somebody a pair of shoes and I didn't know their size, but I knew close.
Okay.
So I bought 2 pair of shoes that were a half size different.
Okay.
And the lady goes, as long as you keep your receipt, we're in good shape. I carried the bag out. The wind blew. The receipt blew up in the air and started blowing across the parking lot. I was like, no problem. I'm going to get that. And a car drove by and I saw it stick to the tire and then I watched the receipt
and your hopes of bringing back one of those pair of shoes just go away with that car.
And so one fit, one didn't, and I was stuck with it. And so really the whole thing with mobile, it is your identity, but it connects the receipts to the payment, to your identity. And it puts retailers in a position where, and I'm going to jump ahead again because I know you're going to ask this, where are we going? It puts retailers in a very good position if they have the right architecture in the background. And unified commerce isn't just your architecture, it's also your data. Unified commerce means unified data. It means
I like that.
having a modern architecture with APIs that connect everything, having the data all connected, and being able to plug in new
Capabilities or
Yeah, exactly.
providers even.
Yeah, and so when you connect your receipts and your shopping, your purchases, your payment, your identity, now you're in a good position to, in the future, to clean all that data up and connect AI and help the associate make choices that will help the customer make decisions on shopping, make suggestions and that sort of thing. So I think truly in the future, we're going to be looking at unified data, unified commerce, and really helping the in-store associates serve the customers better with AI, simplification, and training, and help the customer as well. I mean, at home, I wouldn't mind my AI that I taught, everybody has one of those, right? Being able to store my shopping list and then drop those items in my basket and make suggestions. You're going to be looking at the same thing in the store. You're going to have AI assisting employees, helping customers, and you're going to have assisted shopping and reminders. What did I forget?
And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the issues with the current way we're using AI is that the collective we as people, we might not be using it to help us get rid of the churn, right? Like building a grocery list is exhaustive, right? Sitting with your partner and trying to decide, okay, what are we gonna be eating for the next couple of weeks? Let's come up with dishes idea and let's find out the ingredients. If I can have, and we were talking about this off camera a little bit, how we can create a level of commodity by using AI and clean data. I really like that perspective that unified commerce is unified data. Having the right data in place that knows me, knows my payments, knows my preferences, preferences in the right sense, like this is the right toothpaste that I buy, not preferences in the crazy algorithmic sense of like, oh, today is Tuesday, you're gonna like a coffee. No. Preferences in the stuff that I already buy, so I don't have to spend time trying to figure out a grocery list for the things that I'm always going to buy, right? Like have AI figure that out so I can go and enjoy my life and do something else that is not sitting here creating this. Because I feel like a lot of retailers put emphasis on like simplifying the shopping experience. And I just want to bring this up. In Mexico, we have the ability to do a lot of WhatsApp commerce. A lot of people buy through WhatsApp because the retailer, and this is small retailers and large retailers alike, they have a channel in which you can send WhatsApp messages and you can make your purchase through there. I cannot imagine a way to do that securely without having taken advantage of mobile payments or a payment provider that is able to keep your data secure, so then you never had to give it away, right? These kind of experiences, I think, is what AI will enable in the future. And talking about the future, earlier you mentioned something very interesting, that a few generations ago, people had sci-fi to help them imagine the future, right? You mentioned Star Trek specifically. The original series, we had the flip phone. And it was a thing on TV before it was a thing on reality. Where do you think are the inspirations for this generation? Where do you think they can get those ideas on what the future might look like?
Yeah, so technology is at the verge. So I think the only limit to what technology can do for us is by limiting our imagination. Because you're right, when I was a child, I watched reruns of Star Trek and I watched The Communicator.
Right.
And you look at that and the cell phone is created, 30 years later. I think a lot of the things that we just imagine today, technology is going to enable later. And I mean, the best thing we can do to prepare that with AI and all the other things, with computer vision, all the things that are coming, is have a good, solid architecture that easily connects data and adds new services with open APIs, have clean, crisp microservices data, and be able to connect it, because we don't know what's coming next.
But that's a really great challenge, because we've seen it. We talk with people all the time and trying to come up with a good, solid microservices landscape. Because microservices is a technology term. It's not a retail term.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Is this something that comes from best practices on software? architecture, not retail. Retail technology is taking advantage of a technology feature to do and advance and achieve these things that you're describing with the future, to get future-proof. One of the issues that I see a lot is the definition of the domain, like understanding your business and being able to say, this service should do this and only this thing, right? Historically, point of sale was a system that was blended in with all kinds of places, right?
Yeah.
Upstream, when we were feeding data or getting data from the item file and restrictions and features and stuff, and then blending its data down, and then point of sale was always getting stuck there at the center. Today, that's not the case. Today, we're broken up that point of sale. Like, where do you think is the strongest piece of having a lean point of sale system, if that's a proper way to say it?
So I think, wow, that's a really tough question, because the point of sale register started out as just an adding machine, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think today, making point of sale go away completely, mm-hmm. and I think to have a true frictionless customer experience, checkout should be part of the entire shopping experience, and checkout and payment should be invisible.
Right.
So point of sale should technically go away, mm-hmm. and be a group of microservices, mm-hmm. or capabilities. I mean, to the store associate, the technology should be simple with a quick ramp up of training, sure. to learn it, and should look super simple. It's going to be very powerful and complex on the back end, mm-hmm. and orchestrate all the transactions, but I think a seamless and visible checkout experience. So point of sale almost invisible in the future.
And I think we're getting there, because you mentioned that microservices and having a set of capabilities that describe how to process a transaction is very important and crucial to disappear point of sale, because I think it changes. We're no longer thinking of point of sale in time as the moment of checkout, right? Like now this checkout, and it already happens. E-commerce, yeah. Your checkout, you're doing it from the moment you start adding items to the basket, yep. and that transaction can last for days, right? You were mentioning an example like, hey, Home Assistant, add this item to my shopping list, and later on, that's the moment I'm starting a transaction, and it could take 2 weeks for that transaction to complete, because it's no longer happening the moment that goes and you scan the items, and like this transaction occurred for a really long time. And the only way to achieve that is services that act at the moment they are supposed to act. I'm gonna change the perspective and the topic a little bit.
Yeah, check it out. Throw me off guard, challenge me.
A lot of the technology now is putting emphasis on the store associate. More so, I mean, yes, the customer experience is important, of course, yes, but we are relying on the mobile and the web to take care of the customer experience a lot. But now all of the systems are focused on the store associate. You were mentioning just now that AI is going to help the store associate make better decisions for the customers. Where do you think that change started? Or why? Why did we start? Why did we stop or started paying more attention to the people working in the stores?
So one of my peers that I've worked with for 30 mm-hmm. years, we loved going on store visits because you'd always find things out, mm-hmm. brand new things. We were really smart. We put in a new customer-facing display in one of our member locations of a company we worked with a long time mm-hmm. ago. And we thought, this is going to be great. They're going to really interact with the screen. And we sat at the snack bar at the front of the shop, mm-hmm. and we watched, and they walked over to the pen pad and started typing up, and walked right past the customer display. Didn't even look at it. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's in the wrong spot. So understanding how the stores operate and the day-to-day business in the store is most important. The only technology changes that truly stick are the ones where you understood how the store associates work day in and yes. day out, and you implemented a project that was easy for them to use and they understood clearly, mm-hmm. and it reduced friction for the customer, and it was operationally visible, and it gave operations control. So there's 3 important components. You can't just put a project in that improves the customer experience or reduces friction by the customer and expect it to be successful. You have to understand the business and how the store associates mm-hmm. work and how they interact with the system. And you have to have visibility and operations at the home office. and control to tweak it should it be slightly off. So, I mean, there's 3 components, and store visits were big on our list because you couldn't just put something in place and expect it to work without understanding how the associates interact with it. And we made some mistakes, and we learned from them.
But that speaks to an adaptability on the platform. And you've been mentioning this all along, that the only way to get there is to have an architecture that is just as adaptable, right? And before the next idea, go to the store. If you work in retail, go to the store. Walk the floor, talk to the cashiers, do that. I'm an introvert, and I'm telling you to go and talk to people. But
He's aggressive today.
Yeah, I haven't been in a store visit officially in a really long time, but every time I go to the store, I do pay attention to that. What are the habits of the customer or the habits of the cashier? And then, I spend a lot of time thinking, why am I doing this thing that I did? Because that's the point that I wanted to bring up. It seems that technology has changed, right? Originally, computer technology started, and people had to adapt to the technology to use it. We had to train ourselves to do it. I mean, the mouse was a device that we trained ourselves to use. Then technology evolved, and now we wanted to make that technology open for anyone to use, right? We started coming up with services specifications and APIs in the older sense of an API, when we're talking about a library, right? Stuff that, here is my technology, use it. But now, thanks to automation, thanks to AI, thanks to a lot of modern new technologies meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
Which is what we expect technology to be, right? I don't want to force myself to do something that I don't want, I don't care to do all the time, or I am not used to do, to use your self-checkout or to use your checkout experience. I want your technology to adapt to what I do already. And if I'm just going to be buying items in the store, I wanted to walk out. You were mentioning the smart cards as an example of an attempt to get there. And you saw some challenges. You told me some challenges earlier with the smart card earlier. You want to talk to those without putting names on smart card providers?
The challenges to the smart cards, we were talking about that earlier.
To be able to remove friction, because the smart card is an attempt to do that, right? To remove the checkout experience. So what do they get right and what do they get wrong? And I know your 30-year-long business partner has some ideas on the smart cards, but I want to hear yours.
So on the smart card, so if you look at it, we did talk about this earlier. I'm trying to not throw any shade on that. So I started retail in the 80s when scanning just started, and they used old Garvey guns to price all the items. If you think about that, that's a touch.
Yes.
To reduce friction, you want to reduce the amount of times you touch an item to get it out the door and paid for, right? So when they no longer had to put the prices on, so they just put it on the shelf, and then the customer picks it up once, takes it and puts it on the checkout. The cashier picks it up and scans it and puts it in the bag, right? So if you look at Smart Cart, it actually reduces. So the customer takes it off the shelf, computer vision, or a scanner, depending on what provider, rings it up. And that's
only one touch.
One touch, right? And so when you go to the payment station, it has your payment type. Depending on, again, the provider, it rings you up. So it's one touch and out the door, unless they have a separate bagging. But if you think about that, friction's all about reducing the amount of times you touch and move the merchandise before it goes out the door. Now, there may be self-checkout's the same way. Self-checkout's really good, but there are fraud issues with it that all the retailers are trying to solve. And I think computer vision and smart carts are trying to solve that. I don't think the smart carts are there because each unit that the customer is pushing around costs a lot of money.
Yes.
And you don't want to push it outside and let it get wet. It's hard to trace, keep track of.
Yeah.
I don't think it's there, but the intent is right. Right. So reducing the friction on the number of times we touch merchandise is the right direction, right? That speeds things up. It makes things better for the customer, but we haven't solved it yet.
And I like Because this idea of friction just comes from, I keep going back to breaking the customer habits, right? If a person is already used to do certain things certain way, and you suddenly ask them to do it differently, that's a friction point, right? Like we were talking about like for example, having to install an app on your phone and sign in and enable multi-factor authentication is not necessarily frictionless, but it's something that people is used to do. So it's perceived as seamless. Like, okay, I can, as a customer, not that I personally like apps. I don't like apps. I don't. It's my phone. Get away from my phone. But this idea of like, okay, this is how we do things nowadays, right? So it's okay. It's okay to suddenly create an experience that relies on an app because customers are accustomed to use apps or people are accustomed to use apps. And now we're going to jump back to the patents.
Oh, okay.
You look scared there for a moment.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. I'm ready for anything.
So the patents come from a point of frustration. You mentioned that things that this could be better. This could be truly better. And that comes from being out there and just experiencing retail from that frame of mind. And a lot of retailers, I think, are trying to figure that out, trying to figure their recipe for innovation, trying to figure out their ways to create new things, right? Based on the new technologies. What do you think, or what have you seen is actually a good culture to have innovation? What makes a company or a management team have a good setup to foster innovation? Because you can have great people, smart people. There is a lot of intelligent people, but might not be given the right tools or the right environment, I don't know.
So one thing that I've seen in the past is true innovation comes through technology, communicating with operations, communicating with in-store. If you leave anybody out of that party, it's not likely to work.
Right.
So understanding the frustrations and the ins and outs of the store associates' opinions and how they do their day-to-day job, they're going to tell you, hey, I hate this, I like this. If you could do this, it would make my life so much easier. You have happy store associates, they're taking better care of the customers.
Okay.
So, and then the IT and business side often clash. They need to both understand and communicate the most important things in their side of the business. So I think when you get those three key pieces of the business communicating and putting themselves in the other's shoes and understanding, I think that's where true innovation will spawn and begin to, grow.
And I really like that perspective because it goes beyond having AI, right? Nowadays, the buzzword is AI. Where can I get AI? And how can I be productive? How can I generate revenue with AI? You can, but you need to have the right ingredients in place. And this trifecta of open communications and everything, it's key in order for someone to come in and use AI in the right way, I would think.
Yeah.
You cannot just ask, I guess you could ask blankly to an AI, hey, tell me what the point of sale of the future is going to look like. And it's going to give you something.
Yeah. And I mean, AI opens up time.
Sure.
It helps make things more efficient so that the people, it frees up their time and the people will come up with the innovation. The AI handles a lot of the repeating. They make their work more efficient so they have time to go innovate.
I want to talk about payments before we close out because
I love payments. Let's talk about payments.
Yes. And I really love your perspectives on payments, not just from the technology side, but also from the management side and the implementation side. And I want to get spicy on that. Why do you think people have so much trouble understanding the importance of payments whenever they're talking about these transformation programs or projects?
So I work with people all the time that want to put a new transformational point of sale in, right? That has orchestration, open APIs, and they want this, it connects, their online business to their brick and mortar. And then they want to plug it into a direct connect old legacy payment system. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? So it's all about connecting the data. So I will tell you this. So if you have a direct connection to your payment providers, and there's probably 5 or 6 of them, they know that you have a legacy system that's tightly coupled and integrated in, and they know that's going to take a lot of work for you to move.
That's good business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good business.
It is.
I know you're not going to go anywhere.
Most payment contracts start out as a 5-year contract and renew every 3 years. I've always thought that to being able to move or have choices in your payment providers puts you in a better position for negotiation. So a lot of times a payment gateway in the middle or a loosely coupled, a synchronous connection to your payment provider puts you in a position where, you know, if your fees are too high with one payment provider, you can switch easily without massive retooling or refactoring.
Recertification.
But you want to be in a position to make that move because payments is changing. It's ever evolving. And what used to be the number one cost for retailers was labor. I think it's payments fees now and payments.
Yeah.
If it's not higher than labor, it's probably competing heavily to be the highest expense. So you always want to make sure you are able to negotiate the best fees. I think when you put a new modern point of sale in, you want to also look at reorchestrating your payment and making sure that you have a modern connection. It's asynchronously coupled.
And I know we've talked about with a lot of the clients to understand their true use of the payment. Like if it's a low item, high basket count versus low basket and high item count. And all of that plays a part in defining what those fees may look like and that negotiation is, right?
It does. One payment provider doesn't fit all. I've done payment provider selection studies, and it flip-flops on which payment provider is the best fee structure for which provider. It does make a difference if you have small basket size, lots of transactions, or large basket size, fewer transactions.
Right.
I worked with both, and there's definitely a better fit payment provider for you based on the type of transaction. So analysis of those transactions is super important in the payment fee structure as well.
We'll go back to having unified data, clean data. That's the right foundation to true innovation, I would say.
That's right. And what it boils down to is the faster you can move changes with the least amount of work, and you simplify your operations by AI, you reduce your fee structure on payments, you're going to pass that on to the customer, and the customer's going to be happy about that.
Which is something that culturally here in the US we definitely need. Tim, I want to thank you very much for this conversation, man.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.